All right. Thanks everyone for joining and very, very warm welcome to this SAP community call today on the overview of SAP HANA Cloud. My name is Lena Stodal. I am part of the SAP Community and Influencers team, and I'm your technical host for this session today. I'm joined with Thomas Hammer from the SAP HANA overall product management organization, and he is responsible for SAP HANA Cloud. He dedicated a whole hour to us, so please ask questions along the way. He agreed that I'll ask questions on behalf of you guys. I can interrupt him during the session if it fits to the content that he is sharing. As SAP HANA Cloud is a relatively new topic, we wanted to start with a question to you. That's why there should be coming up a poll with 2 questions that you can answer with either yes or no. This is helping Thomas to know how detailed he should cover the overview, or whether you already have some experience and some knowledge of SAP HANA Cloud. So this is for now. But I also wanted to say, so we already tried out the chat, and some of you already shared with us where you're from. Please use the chat for such purposes, and all the questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, because there we can also enable upvotes. So I will know towards the end of the session, because we have 15 minutes Q&A after the overview, which questions I will ask, Thomas, on your behalf. So
Perfect.
With that being said, I will share Thomas's people profile and myself, so we all stay connected. There's already a question, but let's get started first. Okay, I'll hand over to you, Thomas.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So also welcome from my end. Lena already introduced myself, but maybe just briefly again, my name is Thomas. I'm part of the HANA product management organization. And as she said, I'm focusing on HANA Cloud, and I'm really excited to be here today to give you some insights into HANA Cloud. We called it overview just to have a very general name for it. But we wanted to have the poll first to see how many people have heard of the product before. And as I can see, it's great to see that about 97% of the people who already did the poll have heard of HANA Cloud before. So that is absolutely perfect. Let's say not a lot of people have had the chance to work with the solution so far. So maybe we create as much interest in the topic today, so that you're really looking forward to getting your hands dirty and trying out the product and experiencing the beauty of the service. So without further ado, I would jump into the presentation. Oh, by the way, as we had the poll where we were asking where people are coming from, I'm located in Germany, based out of Waldorf, our headquarters, living in Mannheim, streaming from my home office today, of course, as you can imagine, as Lena is doing. So yeah, and it's great to be here with you and having such a big crowd in the call. Lena, I would stop the poll for now, and then we can jump into the presentation directly. All right, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Excellent, perfect. So today we want to focus on HANA Cloud, and just to give you the chance to, let's say, see how HANA Cloud fits into the overall SAP product strategy, and also into the areas of different products that we're offering. With HANA Cloud, we're definitely talking about a database solution, which, as you may be able to imagine, is part of our business technology platform, which you can see in the bottom of the screen. So of course, we as SAP provide a lot of applications for business purposes to, let's say, create the intelligent suite complemented by our industry cloud. But we also provide functionalities and services that are representing the technological baseline for these sort of services. And HANA Cloud and the entire database and data management stack is one part of that. So for those who haven't heard of SAP HANA Cloud before, SAP HANA Cloud is a fairly new database service that we're delivering now since the first quarter of last year, and which meanwhile creates a really great offering from my perspective, also a comprehensive offering that can be used for database purposes in the cloud. Now, maybe one step back and just giving you a bit of an idea of what we've tried to establish with HANA Cloud and which sort of challenges and trends we try to answer with our product, because that also explains some of the reasons why the service is set up in the fashion as it is right now. If we look at general challenges and trends within the market, but also challenges that our customers are facing, then there is like a vast amount of challenges, absolutely. But we've picked out with that slide here 3 challenges that are very common and that a lot of customers and a lot of analysts can confirm. And that's on the one hand side that the amount of data overall is exploding in a sense. It's constantly growing. We're sensing a lot more data. We have a lot of more devices that are able to collect data. But also that collect, meanwhile, very different types of data. So it's no longer just structured data, which is coming from very typical like sensing methodologies, but we also have unstructured data, for instance, location data and new emerging data types with, let's say, less of a structure as they had before, which we as a company or we as enterprises need to somehow tackle and use for our purposes. In the end, we don't just want to tackle it, we also would like to turn that data into value. Second big challenge is that overall we see that a lot of the data moves into the cloud. On the one hand side, because of enterprises, they want to use cloud technologies for storing their data. And on the other hand side, also, we see that a lot of, due to the fact that a lot of data is being sent, for instance, via mobile devices, it's let's say, a natural choice that this sort of data is moving into the cloud. And then third of all, we see the increased need for intelligent technologies to analyze the data. Enterprises would like to utilize such intelligent technologies to gather value out of the data, but they also require intelligence not just to, let's say, extract the value, but also have intelligent technologies to maintain the data at all, to in the end, hopefully also save costs in operations. And these challenges more or less led us to the decision to provide a new cloud database service with SAP HANA Cloud that aims to address these sort of challenges. And during my overview, I will come back to these topics while I'm talking about specific functionalities that SAP HANA is providing, as we address some of them with very specific functionalities within HANA Cloud. But some of you now may say, it sounds way too good to be real, more or less, because there is always a reality that kind of blurs that beautiful picture of something solving all of these challenges. And of course, there is reality, and the reality is sometimes even more challenging than just trends that we see. And especially looking at our customer base, at our database customer base, we see that our customers are running on-premise landscapes that cannot be easily moved to the cloud. Maybe we see that they have different siloed data locations with large amounts of data with different data formats that somehow need to be integrated. They have complex landscapes which have been necessary in the past because simply given the pattern of an on-premise, let's say, operations model, a different complexity also needs to be existing on the customer side, for instance, thinking about high availability assurance. And also our customers have a high need for data compliance and data security, for instance. And all these aspects needs to be taken into consideration when providing a cloud service. And that's absolutely also a reality that we have to face with HANA Cloud, and that I personally hope we have addressed already and will continue addressing even more, to turn, let's say, the beautiful picture and into a reality in the future for our customers as well. Now, the way we've basically tackled these challenges, but also these realities with HANA Cloud is very briefly outlined here on the slide. So first of all, starting, HANA Cloud isn't just a single service. It is one single product, absolutely, but it comes with multiple database services. And the reason for that is, as we were seeing on that first slide where we were talking about challenges, we are facing nowadays, as said, large amounts of data, and also very different types of data. And maybe having just one single database service to tackle all these different types and that significant amount of data wouldn't be suitable and wouldn't be efficient every single time. So we decided to go for a multi-service database solution, simply because of the fact that we believe there is value in different services that we have added to HANA Cloud, especially looking at this very different data sources or data types. Now I'll come to that in a second, which makes it even better to understand what I'm referring to when saying like we have dedicated service for different purposes. Now, what we've also seen with these challenges is the significant growth of data. And here on that slide, we're talking about data on demand. So we wanted to make it very easy for our customers to increase to grow their landscape with the growing need for more data or for more data storage and processing capabilities. So really here, utilizing the qualities of the cloud and of a managed cloud service, that it is very easy for our customers, for instance, to grow their data landscapes, depending on their needs. So making it as convenient as possible whenever they are challenged by larger amounts of data, which we can assume that this will be the case, as said, because there are confirmed trends that we can see across the entire market. Therefore, we want to make it as simple for our customers to grow, also basically their data management landscape. Then the third aspect that we have considered with HANA Cloud, and is also let's say a leading principle when we continue developing our service, is about the ease of integration. As you were seeing on that reality slide, customers, especially running on premises, they have very different systems running, they have very diverse landscapes. And while, of course, some of our customers are very willing to migrate fully to the cloud and utilize the beautiful capabilities that we have over there, there may still be customers that would like to safeguard the investments that they made on premises. And with having easy integration technologies, for instance, to on-premises services, but also to services running in the cloud, we give our customers on the one hand side the possibility to safeguard these investments, to make use of whatever they have set up on their own on premises, in their infrastructure as a service provider environments, or wherever these services are located. But on the other hand side, we also give them the possibility to some degree streamline the landscapes that they have, because HANA Cloud in specific is tailored to make it easy to distribute the access to data. And this is something I'll explain in a few more minutes as well in a bit more detail. Which basically already leads me to the second part of that screen. I've talked already a bit about the streamlined access. So making, on the one hand side, the integration easy, but also the access to data. That's also related to, of course, secure data access across the entire, access pattern, something that we have to consider. With HANA Cloud, of course, we want to provide the same or even a better developer experience as we have been providing in the past with our database services. Now with HANA Cloud being the state-of-the-art database service of SAP, of course, we're also integrated into state-of-the-art developed environments like the Business Technology Platform, giving our customers all the tools they need to create standalone use cases, to create hybrid extensions, for instance, to their ERP solutions, or to run intelligent analytics on top of data which they have residing in other data stores. And all of that is in the end, of course, let's say, elevated by the great capabilities that the cloud is providing us. I was already talking about data growth, but it's not just the flexibility to grow. It's also about elasticity. So not just growing capacity, but also maybe reducing capacity depending on demand, having functionalities like high availability, more or less existing out of the box without the need to take care about such, let's say, functionalities in more detail. And that's something that we can achieve with cloud technologies. Providing such as a service makes it even more convenient for our customers and represents a significant change from how we were providing database services on premises before. Now let's have a very focused look at HANA Cloud, and that may now give a few answers to the bullets that I had before, and also how that now matches to the challenges that we were seeing or the realities. In SAP HANA Cloud, we meanwhile have 3 database services plus 1 additional service is dedicated to data replication. The main service within HANA Cloud is definitely the SAP HANA database, the well-known in-memory data platform that is tailored to run analytical, but also transactional queries, given the fact that we have the column store architecture, but also as said, the in-memory pattern. That is, or may be familiar to most of our customers, and hopefully also to almost everyone in the audience, but I'm assuming that is the case. And what the SAP HANA database in HANA Cloud also brings with is, for instance, our great multi-model capabilities. And the multi-model capabilities is just one answer to these, let's say, various different data types that we nowadays have to tackle and also can make use of for our advanced analysis happening in our database. To, in the end, also like increase, of course, the value for our applications and for our customers. So just briefly reiterating what's part of our multi-model capabilities. Of course, we have a storage and processing engine for spatial data. We have one which is dedicated for graph data. We meanwhile have capabilities to store and analyze unstructured data in terms of JSON documents. And we have the predictive and text integration and many more such capabilities. Then on the second, in the middle, basically right next to the HANA database, you can see our data lake. And that is a new service that we have introduced with the GA of HANA Cloud, being a relational data store still, but with a, let's say, way higher capacity and a different sort of access pattern as HANA Cloud is, as the HANA database is providing. So the reason why we've added the data lake is simply because it gives us the possibility to provide a, let's say, larger scale data storage while still being relational at a lower cost comparing it to the HANA database. So for scenarios, for instance, where it makes sense to store large amounts of data within an analytical database system, which would not make sense maybe to store the data in a real-time in-memory database engine, the data lake is a great option. As said, it still provides the possibility to analyze the data, given the OLAP architecture of the service itself, but it is not providing the same in-memory capabilities. But there is use cases where these capabilities aren't always required or not required at the full extent. I'll also go into detail here a bit later when we look at our, let's say, data pyramid that we use to explain how different services can can interact as well. And then the third service is our so-called Adaptive Server Enterprise. That's what you can see on the right, which is complemented with the so-called replication server. And the Adaptive Server Enterprise, comparing it to the HANA database, but also to the data lake, is, as you can see, a highly transactional database system. So it's not focusing on analytical use cases. It's really more about handling large amounts of transactions. In the past, the service has been highly used on premises, for instance, by customers in the financials industry. And with integrating these services into SAP HANA Cloud since the first quarter of this year, we now also provide a great cloud solution for customers in such sectors, but also in other sectors that would like to benefit from a transactional database service. So what you can see basically is that first bullet that I explained with the previous slide, the multi-service database offering that we provide with HANA Cloud. And maybe just adding one more sentence to that, it's not just like, of course, it's multiple services, but all of that comes as one product. So meaning if you as a customer are interested in using HANA Cloud, then like the licensing is not defining which sort of deployment pattern or which sort of service you're using. Of course, it makes sense to do some sizing prior to, let's say, licensing HANA Cloud and deciding to go for HANA Cloud. But actually, you're not limited to any specific configuration, and you can use the services, let's say, tomorrow in this configuration and maybe the day after in a totally different one. Because what we've tried to establish, and we've achieved that, is that all of these services from a commercial perspective aren't, let's say, very much linked to the license. So there is, what we've established is a new unit, basically, that we call capacity units, that give us the chance to abstract the real configuration from, let's say, the licensing model. And that way, we also have created a commercial flexibility that allows our customers to, let's say, use the flexibility of the cloud and the elasticity that I mentioned in the beginning.
Thomas, there's one question in the chat that might fit in here. Amol asked whether data lake is Sybase IQ.
Perfect question. Yeah, that fits perfectly in. So indeed, the data lake is based on large proportions of Sybase IQ. Of course, we have utilized some of the great heritage that we have here with Sybase and these capabilities. It's a clustered database solution for those who haven't worked with Sybase IQ before, that we now move to HANA Cloud. Of course, we have adjusted significant parts around the operations of the service itself to fit it into the cloud environment. But in general, you're right. It's that is the technological foundation. And with HANA Cloud, we basically also provide full compatibility to Sybase IQ, meaning that it's very easy for customers to migrate from IQ to HANA Cloud, to the data lake, and gives them the possibility also to run hybrid in a sense. Perfect question and an excellent point in time. Okay,
and there was a follow-up question on that question, namely, is it disk-based column DB like Sybase IQ?
Sybase is disk-based.
Disk-based, okay. There's one more that I would take now, but then I would continue with the Q&A later on. So there's another one. Can I understand that the SAP HANA Cloud license would be equivalent to HANA Enterprise Edition on-premise?
To some degree, maybe, yeah. Let me give a bit of detail here. So if just for the folks who are not familiar maybe with the licensing concept for HANA on-premise, in the past, we had various different licensing packages for HANA on-premise, for instance, the standard package, but also the enterprise edition. The difference between standard and enterprise and all those, like we had many additional packages as well, was that you basically had access to a way larger functionality and feature pack when using enterprise compared to standard. And one of the like areas where there was an impact comparing these licenses, it was in the area of multi-model. So with enterprise, you had way more multi-model capabilities available than with standard. Now with SAP HANA Cloud, there is only one licensing model available. So we do not differ in the functionality any longer with different packages or something like that. That's no longer existing. And if you want to compare it with enterprise, then I would say it is the enterprise package, but simply it's actually way easier. With HANA Cloud, you get all the functionalities. So there isn't a second or third package that would somehow limit the functionalities. It's all in. All right.
Perfect.
Good.
There's more questions coming in now in the chat. It depends
Perfect.
on whether we want to continue with the questions now or later.
Let's maybe continue with a few slides, and then we go ahead and tackle the questions.
All right.
Okay. So maybe also what one of the questions then that may fit to the questions that are now popping in is, what's one of the main differences comparing the service of SAP HANA Cloud to maybe HANA on-premises or other on-premise database solutions? And what we clearly can say is that one of the main differences is the way the service is being provisioned or provided to our customers and the responsibilities that SAP is taking over. Now, some of our customers or people in the audience may say, like, with the HANA service, you have been providing us similar patterns. Indeed, we did, but now HANA Cloud is based on an entirely new architecture, running on let's say cloud native technologies and making, creating a very resilient and very reliable service to our customers. As said, like comparing maybe on-premises and HANA Cloud, then of course the main difference is that a lot of responsibilities that were usually on the customer side are no longer necessary if you decide for a service like SAP HANA Cloud. And that includes the selection of hardware, the certification of hardware, like installation, network configuration, operation system selection, installation, patching, and all these sort of activities that were usually associated in the area of administration of the database. So all of that is now taken over for our customers by SAP HANA, by SAP HANA Cloud. We do not operate these services in a hosting sort of manner. It's really cloud native, means that the service is running autonomously on our landscapes. But of course, it's being monitored by our operations team, and we take care that we can provide seamless operations, and that will become very visual when we talk about service availability in general. But what now a customer has to do when he decides for SAP HANA Cloud, he's simply he's involved, of course, in the sizing process. So he needs to select the relevant capacities, the relevant services that he would like to use in his storage scenario. And then it's up to him to provision the service. But the provisioning, of course, doesn't take as much time as a traditional setup of a database service would have taken. So it's a wizard-based process within the BTP cockpit, where you simply create a database service according to your needs, depending on the scenario, as said, depending on the services that you would like to integrate. And then within a few minutes, basically the database is being provisioned and it's ready to use for you. So, and that already gives some insights into what's the main differences. And that's very similar to many other cloud solutions as well, but definitely in the area of database, it's a great advantage. Now, what stays the same is basically everything on top of providing the database service. So for instance, user management, security configurations, that's all the same. That's something we're not taking over for our customers. Of course, we provide a secure platform, so you don't have to worry about whether data is secure within HANA Cloud. It's secure at rest, at transit. The entire platform is certified according to industry certifications. But of course, the user authentication and access management happening on top, for instance, with your application, that is something a customer still needs to take care of. Same as for the data layer and the other application integration points. Yeah. And now, in addition to that, what I definitely would like to spend a bit more time on is the various different data services. As I said, one of the core responsibilities that still remains with the customers is about deciding which configuration to use. Now with HANA Cloud, we have introduced new patterns of how our customers could utilize the different services for their purposes. And especially the HANA database, but also the HANA Data Lake play a significant role here. Because traditionally, if we talk about database and if we talk about HANA, one would think about the in-memory store first. Of course, that provides the highest performance. It gives great benefits, allowing us to perform real-time data analysis. But it also comes with quite a significant cost. So in some scenarios where it's not necessary to have all the data being stored in memory, there may be a good reason to move it to a less costly alternative or data tier, as we call it, which could still make the data accessible for analysis, of course, and it should always be accessible, but just would represent, let's say, a more cost-efficient option for him to store data. And we clearly see the second tier when looking at HANA Cloud with the native storage extension being a part of HANA. And that is a technology that our customers may be familiar with already, because that has been available already on premises and basically gives the possibility to page certain data to disk, meaning you can move it out of in-memory if you do not access the data that frequently. It's being paged to disk, and on demand, we load it again, and then, of course, can query the data accurately. So that is basically a second tier when working with HANA Cloud. Using that tier, you also have the possibility to store more data than you would be able to store only purely in memory. But let's say the real change comes then with the third tier that you can see here, which is our data lake. And now in that picture, also the heritage to Sybase IQ becomes a bit more striking, because we've split the data lake basically into two parts. The first part that you can see as the third tier is what we call Data Lake IQ. And the Data Lake IQ is basically the heritage piece to the Sybase IQ service. So the relational store based on a disk-based solution that gives the possibility to store data in a structured manner. And from our perspective, is a great third tier when it comes to finding cost-efficient storage solutions for large amounts of data. So from our perspective, if, for instance, you are running scenarios that have a demand for in-memory computing, but have also proportions of data that do not need to reside in memory and that are larger than that in-memory piece, it makes sense to move that data to the data lake. And within SAP HANA Cloud, we provide a seamless integration between the HANA database and the data lake, so that it is very easy to query data from the HANA database, from the memory storage, out of the data lake. So meaning moving the data from one storage tier to another isn't like the data is gone. So it's always accessible. You can always query the data and leverage the great benefits of having a more low-cost storage option maybe for your data. But as said, the data lake doesn't just consist of that relational piece or that database fashion piece. It also consists of a file storage system. And this is a service that we have introduced in the first quarter of this year, in addition to the IQ part, which is very much connected to the data lake. And the data lake file system basically is a web HDFS compatible system. Feels very similar to object storage systems, as some of you may know from hyperscalers, from cloud service providers. giving customers the possibility to store any sort of data in file format. Now, when does that make really sense for a scenarios? From my perspective, it's a great possibility for everyone thinking about archiving use cases, where you maybe also have historical old data being stored in CSV or structured formats. But the data lake is also giving a possibility to store unstructured data in file format. The advantage of storing structured data within the data lake file system is that everything that has some sort of structure can be queried from the data lake IQ part directly. Means, for instance, if you have historical customer data, historical production records or something like that, for instance, in CSV or Excel or Parquet format, then you can store such data in the data lake file system to still have it accessible and stored in a secure manner within SAP HANA Cloud. Now, in case at some point in time that data becomes relevant for your analysis and you would like to query the data to further evaluate whether it really provides the value that you think it provides, then you can use the data lake IQ engine to pre-filter the data directly via SQL. So we've put a SQL language on top of the file storage that doesn't require you to import the data into the database system first, but it runs the queries directly on the files. Of course, with a lower performance compared to when the data would be imported into the database system, but it gives you the great possibility to pre-filter a large amount of data that may not be really, or may not be right to be imported into the database. And if you have figured out that, for instance, some of these track records that you have in your file system are now relevant for your analysis and that you would require them to be accessible fast and with a high performance, then you can move this data up the storage pyramid by, for instance, importing it into the data lake directly. That way you have it directly accessible also from the HANA database, or even you can move it up even further. And that just explains on how we believe that the different services within HANA Cloud provide a great answer to these different needs of how you want to handle different volumes of data and also different data across the entire, let's say, lifetime of a service. But that is just like one dimension of how you can scale in HANA Cloud and also how you can, let's say, utilize different services for different purposes. Another, let's say, dimension, of course, of scaling is within the single services. And for instance, just to share some of the topics that we're working on right now is that within HANA, the in-memory storage, we also want to provide the possibility not just to scale vertically in the sense that we utilize the storage pyramid and independent services that we connect to each other, but we also want to provide the possibility in future to scale horizontally, meaning that we want to provide our customers the possibility, similar to on-premises, to set up multi-node systems via, for instance, scale out. That is a typical pattern on-premises if customers are tackling large amounts of data, or if they have huge compute workloads that they need to handle. Then scale out is a common pattern, or scale out configurations. And that is something we are working on establishing also for the cloud, and which you will find on our roadmap. The beauty of providing such services in the cloud is that the configuration for an end user or for an administrator will become very easy, because we wrap all the cumbersome processes of spinning up additional nodes, of connecting them, of making sure that there is consistency across the nodes. All these sort of services will be wrapped into a database service offering and will be hidden behind a beautiful tooling that we will provide from our end. So we provide the same possibilities, but with the ease of use, as explained earlier, that should hopefully make it a lot more attractive working with such a cloud service as maybe maintaining it manually in comparison. Now, what I definitely also would like to spend a word on is the topic of availability, because that is just another good example of how the cloud, or how providing a database service in the cloud can benefit our customers and can maybe also benefit you. The standard availability, if we look at HANA Cloud and all the services being provided over there, currently is 99.9% of uptime. So meaning without additional charges, every customer can rely on HANA Cloud being available 99.9% of the time. But this is only the legal, let's say, term and the legal number. We experience even higher availabilities with our service, but that is definitely what we guarantee officially. Now, what we provide to our customers since the last release is also a high availability option, or a synchronous replication option, as we call it, which gives the possibility to increase that SLA even further. If a customer decides for this high availability option of the service, we can guarantee an availability up to 99.95%. And that's achieved, as said, via synchronous replication. And again, here it's really great to see how that cloud service kind of fashion can let's say, take away some of the work that would have been necessary to set something like that up. Because in HANA Cloud now, you can activate this option really with a click of a button. And in the background, what happens is that we spin up additional nodes, take care that the replication happens synchronously. And in case of disasters or let's say failures of one of these nodes, we switch directly autonomously, so a customer doesn't need to take care of any of these sort of operations. And this really provides continuous availability of the service, so that you as a customer can rely fully on the database service and have the best possible availability. And over time, we're of course continuing to enhance these sort of technologies even further. Right now, the high availability option only works within one availability zone, but we're also working on extending that service so that you can spin up multiple hosts in different availability zones as well, even providing the possibility to make sure that like local impacts aren't harming your database service and your entire application operations. Now, as we're coming close to the end of the session, what I definitely would like to share with you is a quick glimpse on what we have released in the last quarters, maybe for those who have already heard about the service, as we know, thanks to the poll. But I also want to give a glimpse to what we're planning to share with you in the next few quarters. So within HANA Cloud, I said, we meanwhile have multiple database services, and that has been a fairly large package that we have introduced to HANA Cloud in this quarter, in the first quarter of this year, with the Adaptive Server Enterprise being a component in HANA Cloud, with the data lake becoming a standalone component. So maybe adding just a word to that as well. Of course, customers can mix and match the services, as I just explained, so that to utilize, for instance, the full data pyramid, to start with the in-memory proportion for the most critical data that needs to be accessible directly. But customers can also use all these services independently and standalone. And that is especially also interesting if you have, for instance, some of these services running on premises already and would like to consider a migration. So for customers who are running Sybase or SAP IQ on premises and would utilize the cloud benefits, then of course the standalone data lake is a great option. Same applies for the HANA database. if they are not interested in that additional storage tier of the data lake, or may consider it later. So then again, of course, the HANA database can also be used as a standalone component in HANA Cloud. But it's also really important to stress it just once again, all of that comes integrated. So at any single point in time, you can decide to go for multiple services, use them in an integrated fashion, and utilize the benefits of the various different services. We've introduced in the beginning of this year also the file storage that I explained, really great achievements from my perspective. Then we have worked on that entire area of cloud qualities quite a bit. We have introduced the high availability functionality that I just explained. Apart from that, we have also introduced a near zero downtime upgrade functionality, giving customers here again the possibility to run the service as seamless as possible, even in case of an upgrade. Here, to establish that technology, we spin up, for instance, shadow hosts, perform the upgrade on that shadow host, and then switch over to the new host with as little as disruption for the customers, comparing it to a standard update. We've also worked on the area of security and encryption, now provide customer managed encryption keys for our customers to really tailor the entire database encryption to their needs, and have integrated into the alert notification service of the business technology platform. Now, what we will focus on in this quarter, but also in the next quarter, so looking more towards the end of the year, we will focus in providing new predictive and forecasting algorithms. As said, this is one of the pillars of our multimodal data capabilities, and we will try to extend them even further because we see a high demand here from our customer side. We will also work on customer-defined retention periods for backups. This was a high requested topic from our customers, and we will integrate that into the various different services. And we will also continue providing more self-services. So for every sort of operation that our customers need to perform, we strive for providing self-services. And one good example is, for instance, the scale down of a database system. Right now, this still needs to happen via service ticket, but we, of course, strive for replacing that with self-service operations to make it as convenient and as fast as possible. And then absolutely worth to mention is that starting in Q3 this year, we will also make HANA Cloud available on Google Cloud Platform. Right now, it's only available on Azure, Amazon Web Services, and Alibaba Cloud. And starting of Q3, it will also be available in Google Cloud Platform. Absolutely a great addition. We will start with the US first, and then also provide it in Europe. And as you can see on the screen, further innovations in the area of multimodal. We will extend our capabilities related to our JSON documents, but also to our graphs. So introducing here the real-time graph processing support, just elevating the technology that we already have to the next level, basically. And then looking at 2022, the list is a bit smaller, but that shouldn't indicate that we're developing less innovations or planning to develop less innovations. We're just still planning. But big buckets are here already on the slide, absolutely, with our scale out support for HANA. As mentioned, so the horizontal scaling with multiple nodes pre-configured in one database service that is planned. And then, of course, we will extend the database, the data center offering, but also the offering with regards to single database services. That's what we have planned for HANA Cloud, just to make it an even more comprehensive service for you. And I think now it's time to jump into the Q&A to have a bit more time to answer some questions that may have popped up.
Perfect. Thanks, Thomas, first of all, for the presentation. I'll ask you guys one question, namely, would you like to learn more about SAP HANA Cloud? There's not a little poll for you that I'll start now. We have 6 questions in the Q&A and 3 more in the chat.
Perfect.
So let's get started. I'd like to ask the question that came at the very, very beginning of the session, because Shruti was very patient now to wait to get it answered. So they wanted to consume REST APIs from ServiceNow into HANA Cloud, but they faced issues. They now need to understand how to consume such REST APIs.
Yeah, so in general, there are multiple data integration means existing with HANA Cloud. For instance, smart data integration, but also smart data access. And also the data intelligence stack is basically tailored to the topic of data integration. For ServiceNow, we would need to look into the topic in a bit more detail and maybe have a conversation about that. But definitely, please feel free to reach out to me, and then we can look into that topic specifically. Usually, maybe just trying to give a general answer for REST APIs and the integration of those. For REST APIs, we usually look at data intelligence because that is really one of the main capabilities of data intelligence, integrating these APIs into other services. But of course, we can see on how we can ease that integration into HANA Cloud as well. And as I said, I'm very open for a dialogue here. I'll share my email definitely afterwards. I think, Lena, you've already shared my profile of the community. For such questions, you can definitely reach out to me, and then we get into a dialogue and discuss these topics in a bit more detail.
And in addition, you can ask the question in the SAP community. That would be even better. And then Thomas can answer in the community. Everyone can read the answer, and there may be others who have the same question about how to consume REST APIs. I'll share the link. I'll share the link to the topic page of SAP HANA Cloud for further information, and also how to follow the tag of SAP HANA Cloud in SAP community. The next question is very general, I'd say. It's about the difference between, for instance, HANA Finance Cloud and HANA Cloud.
Maybe like sometimes the names are a bit confusing because we also have SAP S4 HANA Cloud, and we now have SAP HANA Cloud, and all these names sound very similar and may create some confusion, absolutely. But SAP HANA Cloud is really all about the database service. So that's purely the service related to storing and processing data. Other services like you said, it was about Finance HANA. These services are really focusing on the finance part. So they are always based on top of HANA. That's why it's part of the name, and that also like gives insights into how the service is being set up and what the architecture looks like. But HANA Cloud is like the technological foundation for business applications, and then we have these business applications like finance running on HANA. Hope that's answering the question.
I think so. Regarding S4HANA, there was another one. There's two. There's one in the chat. So what version of S4HANA now runs on HANA Cloud database? And also, is HANA Cloud hyperscaler agnostic?
So maybe starting with the second first, because that's quicker to answer. HANA Cloud is hyperscaler agnostic. As explained, maybe the question was popping up prior to me explaining the data center landscape. It runs, as said, on 3 different hyperscalers already. It runs on Amazon Web Services, on Azure, but also on Alibaba Cloud for all the customers being located in China. But in Q3, as said, we will even add GCP. So as a customer, you can decide which data center you would like to choose for your operations and then provision HANA Cloud accordingly. Coming back to the question about S4 HANA Cloud, S4 HANA Cloud is currently in the process of adopting SAP HANA Cloud as their technological foundation. But this will be, let's say, not impacting any operations of our customers at all. So you as a customer, you will have basically a streamlined process of moving from one platform to another.
Okay, perfect. The next question is, with a lot of abbreviations. I'm sure you know all of them. So can we replicate from S4 HANA or ECC using ODP extractor CDS?
We can replicate from S4 HANA to HANA Cloud. We would need to look into the details about the different connectors. So for instance, we provide connectors with smart data integration to connect to ECC. And these can also be used for SAP HANA to set up some replication. And for the open connectors, we would need to look into the details about the current support. Maybe also a good question for the community in addition to that. So we can definitely follow up on these questions as well. I already discussed with Lena the possibility to have maybe a blog post after the call today, so that we try to address these questions that are coming up today, which I'm not able to answer straight away to provide the best possible answer. But if in addition you would like to have a discussion in the community, please feel free to do so. Yeah, but definitely there is connectivity existing, especially if you would like to run extensions to your ECC or S4 systems on top of HANA Cloud. And that is one of the main use cases that we also see with our customers when they use HANA Cloud, because one of the ways how you can safeguard your on-premises investments, but still utilize the qualities of the cloud, for instance, for new use cases. And then the hybrid or these extension use cases are a perfect fit from my perspective.
Okay, perfect. 1 minute left, and Gergo asked 2 questions. That's why I briefly want to touch base on the one about disaster recovery service. Is there a recovery service for HANA Cloud?
So, okay,
or
let me start that way first. Yeah.
Is there a backup restore done by SAP between regions?
Yeah, okay. Let me start that way first. So the, of course, with HANA Cloud, we provide out-of-the-box backups. So every database service is being fully backed up. We retain backups for 14 days, and we also provide a restore service now, even as a self-service. So there is no delay in waiting for like service tickets to be proceeded. The restore always happens in the same region as of now, where the original database system was also provisioned. So right now there is no restore across regions. But in your questions, you were also talking about disaster recovery, and that disaster recovery functionality is planned for HANA. We are aiming to release that early this quarter, but you can find it on the Q3 roadmap. Here we would then provide the possibility to replicate database systems across availability zones with an asynchronous replication in this case, because it's across zones. But that would then provide a disaster recovery functionality in the traditional sense. Hope that was answering the question. It's hard to answer that with a brief feedback.
We can follow up on that question also in the blog post. Then
yeah,
I'll collect all the questions that got asked, and we'll definitely follow up.
Great.
But now it's time to thank you, Thomas, for your time, for your overview. The questions show that there is a lot of interest, and also the poll revealed that there's a lot of interest in having maybe another call on this topic, because it's so new.
Great.
And this the slide that you're still sharing showing that there is a lot to come. Thanks from my side. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and I hope you stay safe.
Thanks, and have a good day. Bye.